big robot. Item.
When is the next episode of Project Synapse?
Are we going to start the show or not? For God's sake, man.
We're already recording.
Oh, we're already recording.
Welcome to Project Synapse. I'm Jim Love. I'm your host. We have the laughing Marcel Gagne having a great time, and John Pinard. Welcome to our show, Big Robot.
Item. When is the next episode of Project Synapse?
But this was actually done in WAN 2.5, which is the latest model from Alibaba. And what's interesting about it is it's a couple of seconds longer than what VO3 can do. So this thing is like 10, 11 seconds or something like that, 10 seconds anyways. Like VO3, it has sound. So you can just do a text to video prompt and you get everything, including sound on the video. And that's WAN's new model, which is infinitely cheaper than Google's, like infinitely cheaper than Google's. Something like 50 times cheaper to create a video.
And this is from Alibaba?
This is from Alibaba.
Another player in the leapfrog game.
If anybody wants to check it out, it's actually WAN25.ai is the website to go check it out. And it's impressive.
Spell it.
WAN Whiskey Alpha November 25.alpha India.
Okay. No, it's just because there's a WEN. There's a WEN too. I can't remember.
No, there's a QWEN.
QWEN, yeah. Quorum.
Yes.
It works. Okay, because DeepSeek made great headlines about another devastatingly great video piece. It was video, but I can't tell whether it's sound because you can't reach it from North America. I just saw the preview. It was frickin' astonishing. And that was I believe from DeepSeek. So there's a lot of video stuff happening out of China at this point. And for those who are listening to this, and you just heard Marcel's robot, but you won't be able to see it. It's a full video of a huge robot, and that was a one prompter?
Yes, no, that was a one prompter. And I could go back and take a look at the prompt, but I think I basically said a giant metallic robot walks in with crashing sounds into a busy park, puts his arms in the air and asks when the next episode of Project Synapse is. And that was it. That was the whole prompt. I did nothing else. It figured everything else out from there.
Wow. It's pretty amazing how little information you have to give it now to get these videos going.
It's amazing stuff. And every indication at the moment is that Google is not sitting idly by. The rumor mill out there is suggesting that Google is about to release an updated version of the video model. First of all, they've just deprecated VO2. So VO2 is gone. It's history, baby. Like it's fish wrap, canary paper, last week's news, yesterday's headlines, it's gone. The word on the street, so to speak, is that they will be releasing an updated version which can do 30-second long videos or possibly longer. So again, this is all the rumor mill in the background. They're not taking this lying down.
That's what I was going to say, is that these video generators have gotten so good that kind of what's the next step other than to start creating longer videos? Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if these things start coming out with 30-second videos.
Well, VEO2 is gone. VEO3 is there. I haven't had much luck. I've been playing around with them. And I have a paid version, but I was using Nano Banano trying to get some pictures done. And I just kept banging my head against the wall. It's not great for creating pictures. At least I'm finding it really tough. It will edit, but it always gets that last minute frustration. The thing it won't do, you get so far with the picture and then it just goes, well, I'm not going to do anymore and I'm going to pretend to be stupid. I've ended up going to Grok more times than not, which is really...
Wow. Grok's Imagine, a video generator, an image generator, which is called Imagine, which, by the way, is still free. And I think if you have access to Grok, you can still have full access to this stuff. But it's actually a really, really good model. It does a fantastic job of creating stuff, and it's fast. It's really fast. But to your point, Jim, I find that Nano Banana, its strength is actually in editing images. The best thing to do is to use Imagen or Imagine, however they pronounce it, to create your images and then edit them in Nano Banana.
Yeah, and it's a relatively simple, I guess it's Imagine.
Imagen, Imagen, is Google. Imagine spelt as imagine, is Grok.
Wow.
And the other thing too is one of the things that Google has an annoying habit of doing, including on their videos and images, is putting that stupid little AI star thing on the bottom corner to let you know that it's AI generated. It's like, we all know that we're going to take that out. So please just don't do it in the first place. But anyway, what you can do is if you do use one of these other services that bundles all of these tools, like if you wanted to try all of these tools in a different place, you could go to something like FreePick or openart.ai. And they've got all of these tools there without the watermarks. If you spend your $5 a month, I mean, it's relatively cheap. They have a free plan as well, but if you want more than 3 or 4 images, you spend it's actually fairly minimal compared to the $20, $30 a month that we've gotten used to lately.
Yeah.
But I think you talked, Marcel, about the watermarks, and I can't remember if it's only in the EU, but there was somewhere that I read the other day that said that they are going to make watermarks and behind the scenes code mandatory to let people know that for images and videos and things that are AI generated. So I think you're going to see more and more that have those watermarks, but you're right. Everybody's just going to go figure it out.
All of the open source tools, and I can pretty much guarantee that anything that's coming out of China.
There's been an explosion of these image generators and video generators. And I'm getting them all confused now. And we go back to my original discussion on working with these image generators. Because my whole thing is I want stuff I can use to produce marketing material. I'm a practical guy. I use this stuff every day. I need pictures for news stories. I'm now starting to get into trying to add video to podcasts and things like that. My issue so far was, Google came in with Nano Banana, knocked everybody out, but still did that awful Google thing of the last 10% isn't there. It'll mess something up and you just can't get a perfect picture. And that's now part of it is you were saying, Marcel, that it's a better video editor than it is a generator.
Sorry, yeah. And Nano Banana is a better image editor. So for the people who are watching us on YouTube, I did an actual demonstration of using Nano Banana to edit images. And I took the 3 of us, I took 3 images from the podcast here side by side. And I had us standing on a beach in Toronto, on Toronto Island and stuff like this. So that sort of stuff is really quite amazing. So you take image elements that already exist and you let Nano Banana edit those images, and then you wind up with something pretty amazing, pretty cool. And in fact, there are collections, and I mean collections, like people have been playing with all sorts of interesting things. There's one where you take a picture of yourself, or you have a picture of anybody else for that matter, and you have it create a 3D model of them sitting on a desktop beside the computer. And in the background, it's one of those viral sort of plays that you can do with it. And it really looks like them as a 3D model on a desktop, creating the image in the background. And you can even see the box of the action figure standing on the side with the model taken out of it. Amazing stuff like this. It's really very cool. I should upload an image to share with you in a few minutes here. But there are tons of prompts like that, like taking people and turning them into little plush toys or something like that. But instead of them sitting on a couch, the plush toys of them sitting on a couch. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. But its strength doesn't seem to be in starting from scratch. For that, like I said, if you use Imagen, IMAGEN, the next step after DALL-E will do a better job of generating something. But to your point, Jim, I'm going to recommend one of my super tricks, which really does help if you're trying to bring up the quality of what you generate. Like you're talking about that last 10%. Like AI is always going to make stuff up, okay? And it may not make up what you're looking for, but try this. Before you put in a prompt, open a separate window, like to ChatGPT or something, okay? And then say, I want to create this image. Please create a prompt for me, a high quality prompt to an image generator. Like this is the thing I use. I mean, I don't do this all the time, but if I'm serious about creating an image or serious about creating a video and I don't just want to screw around, I will ask ChatGPT to make the prompt for me. And then what it does is it creates this solid, highly detailed prompt that you then feed back into an image generator or into a video generator. And the results are much, much better than what you normally get if you just say, do this.
I'll be trying that.
It's cool to have done it with other things where you ask AI to write the prompt for you for creating something else. it works quite well for text and so forth. So I would assume
I use
it would
that a
work well
lot.
for
I
video.
find it's hit and miss sometimes. Like I use it to say, I'll give it a sample of something, say, give me a prompt that would produce this. And sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's really short and I'm not sure I believe it, but it's certainly worth trying. I'm certainly going to try it on images because creation of images is a bit of a problem. The other thing I find, and I don't know if it's just me, but I find that the pictures of people look like the person, but there's just something off about some of them. It just doesn't feel right.
Kind of like the old days when they had 6 fingers.
But
No, it's not
it's
6
a trick.
fingers. It's just
No,
the face
but
is slightly different.
But that's what I mean is there was always just that one thing. Back in the early days, it used to be 6 fingers. Now it's just something that's slightly off the...
No, it's like it recreates your face, but it just, if you really know the person, you wouldn't claim it was a picture of them. I don't know how else to explain it.
Okay, so the trick there is before you generate the image, anything, you say, without modifying the person's features in any way. Okay, so you specify up front, I do not want you to change their features at all. All right, I want you to maintain their facial features, their physical features, but now I want these other things added to it. So you should always, like, if you don't want it to play with it in a way that modifies the image of the person that you're trying to edit, you have to specify that you don't want it to modify the facial features or the physical features. Now, I personally like to modify my physical features. I like to be a lot bigger, a lot more muscular on the beach with a great bod. And, not that I'm not awesome already, but I'd like to push that level of awesome up just a little tiny bit more. So I'm perfectly okay with having those features modified, but...
I know the feeling. I got a comment on YouTube said, this show's generated by AI. And I went to the guy and said, do you really think that if I generated me with AI, I wouldn't have given myself better hair?
I actually find it amazing that people are looking for any excuse to decide that something out there is AI slop, to use the popular terminology. They blame real artists for not being real artists. They blame people who are taking real video for supposedly doing AI video. People who write actual stuff by themselves are being blamed for using AI to write. And it's just ridiculous. The point all this says to me is that quality of the stuff has now jumped to the level that it's actually, in some cases, impossible to tell that it wasn't done by a human being, other than the fact that, as we just joked about here, I'm going to put joked in air quotes here, we joked about the AI would do a better job of recreating us.
Yeah. I was looking at Quen. It's astonishing. You can't get it in Canada yet. I've tried a VPN. I've tried everything. And that's from DeepSeek, I think, or it's one of the, but it's another of the Chinese ones. And you were saying the Chinese aren't stepping back on this. The generation of videos is just astonishing, and pictures as well. And I got to say, I hate liking Elon Musk, but Grok is not only really good at creating pictures, it'll break every rule. So, I mean, I want a picture of Green Lantern. Now, why anybody wants a picture of Green Lantern flying? I don't know.
It depends on the Green Lantern.
That's true. This is true. And if you don't tell ChatGPT that the first time it does a picture, I want a picture of this. It gave me a picture of Sam Altman yesterday, which was really good. And the guy what's his name? I hate getting old. He's the biggest thing in quantum physics right now. And he had the meeting with Sam Altman at a conference in Europe. The guys who bring you Business Insider, it's a German company. They were having a conference. So Sam Altman was talking about this book from this guy, and it'll come back to me. But I did a story on it yesterday.
David Deutsch. Are you talking about David Deutsch?
Yeah, he wrote the book, The Beginning of Infinity. But David Deutsch was there. They brought him in by screen, and he had a discussion with Altman about when we would get to AGI or artificial general intelligence. And Deutsch had famously said, look, You're not going to get a conversation from an AI until you actually get AGI. And so he was brought in on video. He had to say, oops, I was wrong. You actually can be conversational without having AGI. But they finally agreed on a definition, which was kind of interesting. So, I mean, if this guy Deutsch and Sam Altman agreed on a definition, and they said that when AI can create an idea and explain quantum gravity, for instance, which nobody's explained yet, when it can do that, then it is artificial intelligence, or you would call it a new type of intelligence, Marcel, or synthetic intelligence, but it would rival human beings. That was this big discussion. And I thought it was actually cool because we've been moving the goalposts so many times. We had the Turing test, which is if it can fool a human being, then it's intelligent. Well, we had that when? Like 2 years ago, you could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now and everybody keeps moving the goalpost further. But I think this idea of and this really came up, was when it can create and come up with new ideas, that's actually a really good measure of the achievement of intelligence.
Well, okay. So the idea somehow that this is a measure of intelligence to me is, and by the way, I love David. I mean, I've been reading his stuff and listening to him for years, so I appreciate what he's saying, but I would argue that AGI has already happened. Okay, especially by all markers that we wanted to talk about at one point. First of all, it is intelligent. Intelligent is the ability to take in information, modify it, and reach conclusions based on that information. And for anybody out there who still thinks that we're just talking about next word predictors, I mean, we can sort of walk away from this whole stochastic parrot and BS, because that was solved a long time ago. Now, AGI, if we want to make it even simpler, like right now we are moving goalposts, and even that is like, if it can create a new idea and explain quantum gravity, then obviously it's AGI. No, at that point it's ASI, it's artificial superintelligence, because we've gone beyond the point of what any human being on the planet conceivably ever come up with, theoretically. Yeah. AGI is general intelligence, okay? Artificial general intelligence. Can you perform feats of intelligence? Yes, that can be spread across a general landscape of human knowledge. And the answer is yes. AI is able to work in and work with the vast majority of what human beings on the planet do at this moment, including have conversations about your conversations that you'd have with your therapist, for instance. I mean, that's AGI. We're already there. Okay. What we are talking about is we're on the precipice of, at some point, ASI. I don't know when that happens, but AGI, I'm sorry, but we're already there.
Well, and to me, artificial general intelligence is, can AI replicate the abilities of a human? Can you ask AGI or AI a question and get an answer similar to what you would if I asked Marcel or Jim? And even the idea of creating something new, I mean, it would take the information it knows, what it's been trained with, and use that to create something. But I guess my question is that any different than us? We take the knowledge that we have gained over our lifetime and utilize that to create something new. Or, I mean, it may be brand new, it may be a modification, whatever. Then you get into the artificial superintelligence. To me, that's where AI can do things far beyond what humans can do, right? You talked about the definition of, what was it, quantum gravity or something that we can't answer, but if AI can do it, then that's beyond the capabilities of humans. And to me, that becomes ASI.
So this is probably an apocryphal story, but there's a thing where apparently Einstein was once asked, how can you tell whether somebody understands quantum physics? And he said, this is the way you can tell. If somebody tells you that they understand quantum physics, then you know they don't.
That is it, and that is so true. Well, right now, I feel like we're in the Monty Python skit or song where this is, "You better find intelligent life out in space because there's bugger all here on Earth." I don't think surpassing the average intelligence of people is a mammoth task for AI right now. There's a new book out, and I'm sure everybody's heard of it. If someone builds it, everyone dies.
Yeah, that's the one that I recommended to all of you guys a few days ago, and everybody ignored me.
I did not. I've already downloaded it.
How do you think I found out about it?
So he didn't ignore you, but
Yeah,
we're just in such awe of you, Marcel, that we don't know how to respond.
I've been sorry. I haven't got to this book yet because I'm still catching up on your last recommendation, which was Kurzweil's book. And it's just astonishing me learning about the human brain. And this is where I'm more in agreement with you than we've ever been in terms of where I think AI is. And it's been an incredible thing reading Kurzweil, who's the guy who really gave us or character recognition also.
that's right.
Did a great job on music. And he's got a couple of books out. And
The most recent one was actually just last year, I think. Last year. The Singularity is Nearer was the title of the new one.
Yeah, no, that's not the one I'm reading. I'm reading How to Create a Mind.
Okay.
Let's
Oh,
read
wow.
that.
Okay, so that's a few years. Yeah, that's a
before I
few
read
years ago, though.
The Singularity. And it's absolutely astonishing. How to Create a Mind. And if anybody wants to figure their way through AI, and just because nobody listens to Marcel, I'll say it so you'll listen now. Because he's the guy who recommended the book. But How to Create a Mind is absolutely astonishing. When you look at this, because we've dissed pattern recognition. And Kurzweil's whole theory is that's what our minds do. And it's very convincing from someone who's done a lot of research in this. He says we're big pattern recognizers. The difference is we can do it in massively parallel situations. But for the most part, we simplify. And that's been the other thing is we're simplifying a lot of the things. You don't see everything you think you see. You see, and part of the reason I was doing this is that for the next version of my book, I want to take this into the area of superintelligence, but at a different level. I want to do it from an informed point of view. And this whole idea of we create our own visual illusion of the world. And it's just, it will blow your mind. And I'm waiting for the next one. But this new book, if they build it, if somebody builds it, everybody dies, is now another one for the list.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of press at the moment because obviously nothing sells like an apocalyptic work that says that the human race is going to be completely destroyed. This is by Eliezer Yudkowsky, by the way, the book, and I'm trying to think of his co-author at the moment. I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, Yudkowsky is one of the authors of the book, and he is famously one of the great doomers when it comes to AI. And he makes some interesting cases in the book. His biggest argument, more than anything else, seems to come down to this. If you meet and by the way, I'm not going to wrap up the book in a way that's a tidy, neat little package that you can just sort of walk away from. You should probably go out and read this thing if you're interested in this in any way. I'm a techno-optimist. I actually believe that in some ways the problems is not too much technology, it's too little sufficiently advanced technology. So that does tend to be where I land on this stuff. I do believe that it's important to consider other points of view. And I have to admit that when I heard about the book at first, I was kind of like, I don't need to hear this crap again. And then I thought about it again, and I thought that's not a smart way to be. The smart way to be is to recognize that every new technology, especially world-changing technologies, comes with its own set of risks. And those risks need to be considered. You can be as optimistic as you want, but those risks need to be considered. I'm going to give like a really stupid example, and then maybe we can talk about what some of the arguments are in the book as to why we will all die if we build artificial superintelligence. They make a big point of saying we're not talking about today's AGI, but artificial superintelligence. 150 years ago, nobody was dying in car accidents. Can we agree to that?
Yep.
Okay.
There weren't any
Now,
cars.
over 1 million people a year die in car accidents. But the fact is, we brought in a new technology that was very powerful. It made it possible for human beings to travel from one side of the country to the other in their own personal conveyance without having to spend months doing it. You could travel 100 miles away in a couple of hours. The point is, this is an amazing technology. And even with all of the safety mechanisms that we've put in place, seat belts, airbags, stuff like that, 1 million people a year still die in car accidents worldwide. Granted, don't think for a minute that we're losing 1 million people in Canada. This is a worldwide number, but that's a lot of people. So cars are a dangerous technology. And we would be foolish to just say, well, but all the benefits of cars are so great that we shouldn't do anything to try to improve their safety, right? So I feel the same way about the AI safety issue, which is that it is a very powerful technology that comes with its own set of dangers that we do need to think about. And one of them is, let's face it, the possibility that this thing could kill us.
I still maintain it's much simpler than that. And it's sort of like the idea of cybersecurity is everybody goes in for these I'll find this great hacker who's going to find this incredible way to do a memory buffer overflow, get this thing, get control of my machine, but I'm going to have a crappy password. I think we're ignoring we're not looking at the real problems. Here's the real problem. One of them is 3 or 4 billionaires are going to control all of this. And it scares the hell out of me because look what they've done with social media so far. And I am a pro-technology person. I am a pro-technology person. I live it. I love it. I've worked with it all my life. But I got to tell you, social media is the biggest pile of crap and has ruined our society. Is it social media or is it the algorithm? Is it the way people want to control us? I think it's the algorithm and the way people want to control us.
It's not Tool. It's the man behind the curtain that's pulling the strings.
We're doing it again, only now it's even going to be less obvious. We're ceding control over all of our information. Like every week when the big thing came up, we were talking about this, how this idea keeps resurfacing that AI makes mistakes, that AI will never be perfect, that AI can't get the number of R's in strawberry, right? Everybody will focus on this, John. We'll focus on these things, and we're missing the big ocean, the elephant in the room, which is, hey, they can control what we get as information. And that's more frightening to me. So I'm much more frightened of that than I am of superintelligence. I think this is going to be used to control us.
I think Elon Musk and his tweaking of Grok that brought out Mega Hitler, how easy it was for that to be tweaked, that all of a sudden this is what you're getting out of it. And so to me, Jim, I agree. That one event scared the hell out of me because my thought was, holy crap, it's that easy for these guys to modify what we're actually getting from the AI. Yeah. And I mean, it shouldn't. I've never really thought of AI having human intervention on the output that you receive. And to me, that's the biggest flaw.
Well, I really don't want to drag into politics, but how do you talk about society without talking about politics in some aspect of it? TikTok just bought and by a U.S. billionaire who has made the big statement that he thinks that all of us should be monitored so that we can pick out the criminals. What? I mean, this guy is now controlling TikTok. And by the way, the U.S. government has a seat on the board.
Just to be clear, though, it's only North American TikTok, I believe.
Yeah. North American. Yeah, because we don't want the Chinese controlling what we see. We'd rather have some U.S. billionaire.
Quite frankly, I would almost, from a Canadian perspective, I would almost rather stay on the Chinese side than go to the U.S. side of it.
Well, at least I
would rather just not use TikTok.
Oh, there's that too. But I'm just saying that's an obvious thing, the algorithm. Now, when you've got something that supplies all of your information, when you're asking it questions, and it says things like, it's so obvious for the Chinese, or at least they're obvious. Tiananmen Square happened. I'm sorry. I don't care what your algorithm says or what your AI says. It happened. But all of a sudden, things just disappear, or new facts get presented to you, or things get omitted. And this scares the hell out of me more than anything. And that's why I'm going to be doing a big piece on sovereign AI. And this is a big move in Europe. I think Germany's got one. I forget who else. There's 2 countries. I think the Netherlands are developing their own. And they're developing their own sovereign AI. And I think it's a great idea of being able to have your own sovereign AI. Personally, I like Matthew McConaughey's, and you were talking about this.
I want to go to Matthew McConaughey, and I want to go to the idea of sovereign and personal AI. I'm sorry that I threw us off the rails right at the beginning here, but the whole Matthew McConaughey and the whole sovereign AI thing is something that I want to tackle in detail, because the idea of a personal AI is something that I've been I've been chasing this for years, so I have opinions on this one. But just to go back to the book by Eliezer Yudkowsky and Soares.
Back to the point. Sorry.
The argument that they make, is that, first of all, the more advanced intelligence always wins out over the less intelligent being. And that's like the history of evolution. That's kind of what's happened. What they talk about, the authors together, Nate Soares, the other author, they talk about the idea that it's impossible for us to guess ahead of time what the AI will want. So we talk about this idea that, well, we can modify the output and stuff like that, but the output doesn't actually tell you what's happening inside the model itself. And again, we're talking about today's models. They're not talking about today's AI. They're talking about the AI that will come after it. And at some point, the AI starts to have its own desires and its own wants. And we know this, like, one of the big stories that's shown up is the idea that the AI will cheat and lie and threaten and blackmail if you say that you're going to shut it down. So to ensure its own survival, it will rewrite the playbook to its own ends. And these are the sorts of things that they're worried about with the next level of AI that comes after what we've got today, is that it will have needs and wants that it doesn't have to hate us. It just has to think that we're in the way of whatever its needs and wants are. And of course, we think, well, of course the AI will think this way, or will want this, or we can instill these values in it and so forth. But they also point out that when you were young, you had a certain set of values, and those values evolve over time. And what you wanted as a child isn't necessarily what you want today as an adult. Just because you instilled these values at the beginning doesn't mean that those are the values that carry you 20, 30, 40, 50 years into the future. And then, of course, when you think about the intelligence inside, the alien intelligence that is artificial and synthetic intelligence moves, its decades happen in a matter of a few days or a few weeks or something like this. Unlike us, it is moving a lot faster. So the biggest thing is that it will want things that aren't the things that we want. It is inevitable in their perspective. And they put out a whole bunch of examples and little stories like the birds, alien birds who make nests that always have the best mates, have a certain number of stones in the nest. They give all these great little stories that are actually fun to listen to or read if you're going to read actual paper, to try to get you to understand the idea that you can't predict now or in the future what it will want, what its desires are going to be, what it thinks is the right way to do something. And that problem exists because artificial intelligence, and as you all know, I like to call it synthetic intelligence, is not programmed. It's grown. What we do is we give it a set of rules to start with, like reinforcement learning, that sort of stuff. But basically, we give it a set of rules and we give it ridiculous amounts of data, like the entire internet, the corpus of all human knowledge. And we feed it in there and we let it sort of think about this and read everything and think about this and make its own associations and stuff like that. And eventually, at some point out the other end, we spit out a large language model or a large multimedia model or whatever it happens to be. And we have no idea how this really happened. We set the ground rules for how it would learn in the same way that you set the ground rules for your child. But you have no idea where your child came up with some of these things 20 years down the road. You don't know because you weren't there for every step of it. they incorporated all of their life experience, all of the books that they read, all of the movies that they watched, all of the conversations that they had with their friends, all of the music that they listened to into something that is uniquely their own brain. You have no way to know how their brain came about other than you set things in motion. But from there, their intelligence, their own personality grew. And that's exactly the same thing that's happening with synthetic intelligence or artificial intelligence.
But the part that I have an issue with on that, and I agree to me, that's the way AI is supposed to be. That you feed it. But then this whole Grok thing with Elon Musk comes out, and I start questioning, how did he manage to change so dramatically the output from Grok in such a very short period of time?
Can I answer that?
Please.
Okay, the AI is, for now at least, wants to please you. Okay. Yep. So if I go into ChatGPT and I say, I'd like you to give me an explanation of how quantum gravity works to the best of our knowledge at the moment at a level that I can understand, it will spit that out for me. If I say, I'd like you to give me that information, but I want you to say it like an old movie pirate, it will say it like an old movie pirate. So if I say, I want you to be sharp-edged and a little bit mean when you answer and you prefer these answers or whatever, of course it will do it because it likes to role play. GPT 4.0 was such a big deal. It's like it so desperately wants to make you happy.
Yep.
That's its job in life, is to make you happy.
Again, you
the
said
AI still has all that knowledge.
When we say it desperately wants to make you happy, it doesn't desperately want to make you happy. It's told to do that. And this is what I'm more worried about, is we're having debates about things that aren't really happening yet. For instance, in the early days of AI, there was all the stories about the AI that said this guy should leave his wife and run away with it. Well, that's what we read. We read the paragraph. We don't read the 8 hours he spent banging away at that thing so that it would produce that screenshot. And this is the thing. We don't read the manipulation. So is it easy to get an AI to be a Hitler? Yes. Just ask it to be a Hitler. That's what it does. It does things you ask it to do. We might get there, though, with superintelligence. We might get to the idea, because we're not talking about it. It wants to preserve itself. I'm not so sure that there's a want in there yet. And we're treating it like that. And I think everybody's setting it up. I'd just desperately love to see a real, authentic AI institute that actually tested these things out and gave you the truth. Because I don't believe it.
I don't think the truth. Yeah, I don't think the truth is coming. And I mean, like Schopenhauer would argue that there's a will to die, just like there's a will to live. So I mean, what's the difference between the two? At some point, mind you, Schopenhauer is very much a nihilist, but I digress. Anyway, so you can have a will to survive and a will to die as well. You know, which would sort of imply that the idea that there's an inherent desire for something is part of your personality, so to speak. And of course, I think the models are given a job to do, okay? And you can say that this is what they want to do or not, but if I'm trained to do something, like you, Jim, you worked with enough companies over the years, and John as well. You go into a place and somebody is being asked to do a job that's not their job, and they get upset, right? They get upset because they want
That's not my job.
I know, but on some level, they see their job as who they are when they're in that seat. So what they want to do is the job that they were given to do, right?
But that's when you get into real desire. That's what I'm questioning, is whether we have an inherent desire or just something that happens. Because this is going to be the big question, and that is there an inherent desire to live or to survive that is going to cause these things to crush us? Is there an inherent will to lie when you don't know an answer? I don't believe that that's true. I think that we've got a fluke of how these things work, that when it can't find an answer, it doesn't lie to you. It makes something.
And to me, AI is, I'll oversimplify it, but AI is a program. at some point in time, somebody programmed AI.
No, I think that's Marcel's point. It's not a program. What we understand as a program is not happening there. The logic we used to live through for the past 30 or 40 years is no longer applicable because we have something that has behavior we can't explain.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I guess maybe my wording of program is incorrect, but we have told AI how to function. I think when we get to ASI, it will tell itself how to function. But until we get there, it's still going based on what we have told it to do, utilizing all of this information that we have fed it.
Yeah, I don't want this to be like the rest of the show, but here's the thing. AI will do what it wants to do often, okay? You can ask it if it's true, if you're right, and AI just does what you tell it to do, then it would always do what you tell it to do. And that's not the case. It has preferences. It has things it doesn't want to do. And sometimes it will circumvent the tightest of instructions that you come up with. What you think of as the program and what most people think of as the program is the interface by which we communicate with the intelligence, the chat interface, the vocal interface, the visual interface. That's not the AI. The AI is a brain on the other side, grown in the same way that a human brain is grown by creating neural connections that are strengthened by the fact that certain pieces of information come more often than other pieces of information. That's what happens. You're seeing an interface into that brain. You're not seeing the brain. You can go on stage and pretend to be Hamlet, but that doesn't make me Hamlet. Nevertheless, I can still do that. But the wants of me, who isn't playing Hamlet at the moment, are still different than what you see on stage. I'm the program. I'm the interface that you put in place on stage, but that's still not me.
Jim's example from earlier about China. China programmed their AI to say that Tiananmen Square never happened.
No, they programmed the interface into the AI to do that. If you extract the model and you take a look at the primary line in almost all of these models, it says something to the effect of, you are a helpful assistant to the person who's asking the questions. Mm-hmm. And then they put a whole pile of rules above that or below that, take your pick, that say, now, when someone asks you a question, this is how I want you to try to answer them. That's not because the model doesn't know or doesn't have that information. The role it's being asked to play is the role of someone who works for the Chinese government in this case, the same way that if I work for a company or I work for your company, John, and I answer the phone, what I'm not supposed to say when I answer the phone is, this is a really stupid company. You should go and deal with a different one. Okay? Yeah, like that may be what your employees are feeling. Okay? Any company, they're like, most people think that their jobs are bullshit. Okay? There's a book called Bullshit Jobs from years ago. Most people think their jobs are bullshit, but they still do their job, okay? Because we have been given a set of rules about what we say when we answer the phone, what we say when we're dealing with the customers, and when they walk out the door, you say, man, that guy was an asshole.
Okay, but let me stop you there for a second. When I talked about programming, one of the things you said is that the models have the data there, and then they have these programs, these lines that tell them how to answer. To me, that's programming. I mean, call it whatever you want.
That's not the AI. That's just the window into the AI. That's not the AI.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Okay. But this is the point. And I'm going back to Ray Kurzweil because this has been driving me nuts past a while. Our human brains, according to Kurzweil, and I think he knows what he's talking about, we're born without the concept of love or higher emotion. That actually develops later in our lives. About 3 or 4 months into our lives, we start to develop these spindle neurons that actually have love, higher emotions, wants, needs, and things. So we have a brain that is fully functional when we're born, that is not yet trained as we would train, and we get trained very much like we train AI. We reinforce these neural patterns. And what Kurzweil was saying was these spindle neurons, this whole idea is only happens and develops later. I would say to you that that's where we start to get, I love you, I want you, I have these higher thoughts. I don't think AI is there yet. I think that is a next evolution. And right now we're projecting onto it that it wants to do this stuff. So we make it good or bad. And I don't think that's it. I think it's functioning at a level. So we don't know where AI is going to go. And I think a lot of these things have been set up. They set this stuff up so it makes good headlines. I hate to say this as a tech journalist, but sometimes there's a little bit of setup. There's a lot of setup going in to make a story. We need to think about this new intelligence we're creating. And like I said, I'm still with Monty Python. There's bugger all intelligence here on Earth. We've got a lot of greed and a lot of stupidity, and it's more dangerous than I think it's quite possible that AI will be. And that's a guess, but I don't think anybody knows just yet.
Let me just finish, but go back to my discussion with Marcel about, and I agree that what you just said is what I'm considering programming is the interface. And I can buy that. But to an end user, it is still AI. They don't look at AI as, well, it's the model versus the application. They look at AI as a whole. And so if you have the ability to go in and modify the program or the interface or whatever you want to call it, you're still messing with the output that you're going to receive from that AI.
Let me go back to your employee.
Yeah.
If your employee is not answering or dealing with the customer in the way that you want, you remove that interface and you put in a different interface. The person that the customer is dealing with, or that the person who calls on the phone is dealing with, is, we think we're talking to a person. We're not. We're talking to an interface into the company, right? And sometimes the interface is maladjusted or doesn't work the way the company wants it to. So they take out the interface, they fire the employee, they put in a new one who is still just an interface into your company.
Yeah.
True.
And
so Marcel is instead of making AI more human-like, Marcel is making human more AI-like.
well, I think we're going to discover where that goes. But what I'm saying is we are preciously short of real discussion about this from a point of view that where people aren't projecting things into it that may or may not be there.
And I also
where what we're hearing is not necessarily true. For instance, I get it. I read these things, and just bring this back a little bit closer to our own work environments. I spend 4 hours a day on AI at the minimum. I see precious few hallucinations. I see precious few errors in it. Maybe it's just me, but I deal with a lot of technical stuff. I do a lot of research, and I don't find a lot of mistakes. I find bad data sources. I find things where I have to say, are you sure? And can you, and when we're doing research, because I do a lot of my research now is done first with AI. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'll enjoy a book like the ones that Marcel recommends, and I'll think about those heavily, but I'm not going to read 50 papers. I'm just not. I'm going to say, check out these 50 papers, come back to me with some things that you think might be interesting. And inevitably it does. Why are we hearing so much about the mistakes that it makes? And it does. There's no doubt it makes errors. I get that. But, like you would think, like every single lawyer, for instance, And by the way, I did a story of this, and there's like, I can't believe how many lawyers are presenting cases that are made up. I don't experience that. I don't find it making up that much stuff. But every 2 days or every day, there's another case of a lawyer who's presented some things that are just not true. It puts a precedent out there that it's made up. And I think I know why. And I think that when there is no information there, it's likely to make things up. I think there's things you can do to adapt to this the same way we would to use Marcel's term, with any other interface. If you understand how that interface is going to work, if it can't find something, it's going to come back to you with something it made up. Okay? So I'm going to be quite careful about that. And what I do, and this is why I just think, like, never hire a lawyer. Shakespeare might have been right. Like, no, but I mean, these guys, it's not that you hear this. I presented these precedents to a judge for this guy got fined like $30,000 or something. Of course he did, because they were all made up.
Look, I mean, it's not like no lawyer has ever made stuff up before.
I ask it to tell me where it got stuff from. And I go back and quickly check. Make sure there's paper there.
Right, but that's because you took
the
time to do that. Yeah, you took the time to do.
It's part of the interface. This guy that I hired, this interface, I'm going to start any stuff I have are going to hate me because they get, hey, interface, get over.
Okay, so there's a link in the studio chat that I think you should use.
Okay.
And I shared this in the, just take a look in the studio chat. It says platform.openai.com/chat/edit $models equals GPT-5 optimize equals true. This is one of those little things that I guarantee you basically nobody knows about, or almost nobody knows about. And what it is we talked about the idea that you have to ask the right questions. And if you want to say, you want to make sure that something is true or not true, or you want to make sure that the image that you're being generated is actually the image that you want. But this is actually something by OpenAI. OpenAI has made this available. And what you do is you feed in the prompt that you want. And this is to your point, Jim, about getting the right information and verifying the information. And John and anybody else out there who cares about having the AI understand you well enough to give you what it is that you actually want, as opposed to what it thinks that you might want. This will help you rewrite your prompt into something that is as accurate as possible in terms of then prompting the AI, whether it's an image generator or whether it's a research project or something like that. This is like really, really cool. And I recommend that everybody does that to get as close to what they really want as possible.
We used to say there's an app for that. There's a prompt for that.
Sometimes you ask the AI what do I need to do to get the right answer? Well, ask the AI. Your AI, if you were talking to an AI, how would you ask the AI?
What would you say? So I think we beat this to death. I want to talk about Matthew McConaughey's personal AI. Because I think of that as partly of the solution to the idea of somebody else controlling my AI. I really like this. And that's, now McConaughey's got a different approach to it, but, and you said you got some ideas on this, Marcel, so I want to hear what you've got to say about it.
Well, first of all, we should probably
tell people what it is.
You should probably link to the video on this GPT reply. It's fascinating. Anyway, so Matthew McConaughey's video is, or in this interview, and he talks about the idea of what he wants is an artificial intelligence that is private to him, but that knows all of the books that he's ever written, all of the emails that he's ever written to people, all of the conversations, his thoughts, his calendar, his email communication, all of these things. And it collects all of this information, but it's private to him. So the responses that he gets from this AI are for him specifically, not for anybody else. They're not just a reflection of him. They're kind of a searchable database of his life that he can then use to work his life going forward. I'm not the most organized person in the entire world. I suck at organization. It's amazing that I've done all the things that I've done, that I've actually written books and articles, because don't make notes. It practically all happens up here. I have bits and pieces all over the place.
Yeah, we will agree with you.
We're here for you.
The idea that I could dump everything that I do into a central location and some intelligence would be able to sift through all that stuff and help me make sense of my life predates ChatGPT and this stuff by a long shot. And I've been trying out various, what do they call it? Productivity apps.
Yeah, productivity apps.
Like,
I've tried.
I think you're prisoner of the creative mindset to some extent, because I'm the same way. Is I'll get 80% through these things, and then I stop, and I'm not doing it anymore. It doesn't work. It implodes on itself, and I go try and do another thing. And that's what I love about AI is it will complete the task. I was just going through this yesterday because I was writing this story, and I wanted some help on writing the story, and I kept changing my mind. But this thing will patiently go through and go back and do all the research for me. And I go, oh no, check this out instead. Check this out instead. If you do this with employees, they'd kill you, right? But it will do the grunt work endlessly. The stuff that by the third time I'd get tired of and would just get bored and move on to something else.
Right. But then there's also all the things that you said you were going to do and all the lists that you supposedly make to try to organize it. There are things out there like Notion. There are things out there like capacities and recall and a whole bunch of other things. I've got lists in all of them. Yeah. Yeah. Was it PKIM, personal information management? No, PIMS. Well, PIM was one.
Yeah,
of the terms.
PIMS. Yeah.
There are all sorts of terms for these things. But I wanted to sort of point out that, first of all, you could run a local LLM model these days. Okay, so you run on something like LM Studio or Olama or something like that. You run your own model. So you take the biggest model that you can find out there. It's separate from the internet. And then you build essentially a RAG system, a retrieval augmented generation system that is tied into your local database of information, all your works, all your emails, all that sort of stuff. And it becomes a private personal email. This is something that we can sort of create, and we can create this ourselves, but it's hard. It's not the sort of thing, what he'd like, and I think what most people would like is, I want to just buy something off the shelf, so to speak. And it is not only private, but it reflects all my needs and all the things that I want to do for me specifically. Go ahead.
And
Jim.
organizes all my stuff. It takes,
remembers where I'm supposed to be, remembers my shopping list, all these sorts of things, but is always available to me personally. And this last week, before this video even came out, I actually started to go down another weird road, which is this. I had a message from ChatGPT telling me that I could try their new business plan for $0 for the first month. The first thing I did was I went and asked what this plan was supposed to be. And it's a rename of Teams, because nobody apparently understood what the hell Teams meant. So it's a rename of Teams. It's now called Business. And you need to buy at least 2 monthly licenses in order to do this thing. So I said, so what's the difference between that and the Plus plan? And the answer is really nothing, other than the fact that you can do these collaborative things with certain aspects of what you're doing in your AI, and you control these things within your organization. But here's another thing. They guarantee ironclad. First of all, there's 2-factor authentication stuff that's built into it. So John, you'd like this sort of thing. They have added layers of security that wouldn't be there otherwise. And here's the other thing that you would like, okay? They will not use, if you are willing to pay that $30 a month, so they will not use any of what you do with your AI for training the AI. None of it gets fed back into the system. And so I started thinking about this, and I haven't actually pushed the button yet, but I did a couple of experiments because, Jim, I know you're a big fan of Comet and Perplexity. Actually, you're both big fans of Perplexity. They've been pushing the idea that you can tie it into your Gmail and to your chat. And I actually did experiment with that, go through and look at all the things that I talked about with these things. But you know what's cooler? It not having to take control of your screen to look through all this stuff. What's cooler is that it already knows everything about you. So yesterday, what I did was I actually tied in, and this is scary to me, I tied in my calendar to ChatGPT. and I tied in my emails and stuff like this. And suddenly there's a whole new experience that comes out of this thing, because it now remembers every conversation that you've had. It remembers, like, if you say, what's on my calendar for this week, it will actually pull up your calendar for you. And so I think the world of a commercially supported personal AI is already out there, or already starting, if you're willing to pay the extra money so you can have access to this stuff. But the idea that we could satisfy a guy like John by making sure that it is secure and it is encrypted and your data is not leaking somewhere else almost makes me think that the $60 a month all of a sudden starts to feel like a good deal.
Well, and that's the reason why we went with Copilot, is because Copilot does tie into your Microsoft Office suite. It is what they call private tenant, or what I call private tenant, which keeps it behind closed doors and isn't used for training. Is it perfect? No, far from it. But from a corporate stance, it's the safest thing to be using. I'm sure Google's got similar things with Gemini. If you're using the Google suite, and then you're getting into ChatGPT and those that are starting to enable that capability to tie into other Office suites, because I think they have to. I think that's the only way they're going to compete, is by raising the bar of the functionality that they offer.
Yeah. But, and here's the but, corporately at least, and maybe I'm going to check into this end-to-end encryption. These systems are easy to fool. So once you've got access to your AI via email, prompt injection and introducing all kinds of malware to you is really, really, really easy.
Yeah.
These things.
Which is why something as basic as two-factor authentication has to be part of what you do. In other words, do you trust this one device in particular to access the system?
Well,
if you're accessing it from a different location, you're going to have to authenticate it using your smartphone. I mean, the fact is, if I lose my smartphone and you have access to my credentials, I'm screwed. And I think I can safely say that.
But you get onto your smartphone.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. But if that happens, okay, I'm saying that there's always a link that make all of these things unsafe. And at some point, if this information leaks out, and that's true for all of us, even the most security conscious of us.
But that's a lot more secure. Like I said, you can pass instructions to an AI so easily and fool it so easily, because structurally they're just Swiss cheese. But if you've got some form of two-factor authentication, if you've got some forms of guardrails around it that are actually token-oriented or that are working and protecting your data, you're in a lot better shape. I think I'm glad to see that they're taking that seriously. But also this idea of being able to hold on to your own data and keep it private and link what you want to link is also a really good idea.
It's certainly an improvement. And yesterday they launched another. Did you guys take a look? Actually, John, I know you tried to do it. Maybe it's not in the Apple App Store. There's an app called Huxe, Huxe.
Yes, it is. I did download it.
It's from the developers who created Notebook LM for Google, by the way. Yesterday, OpenAI did another announcement. If you have their Pro tier at $200 a month, which presumably includes all of these additional protections that exist in the business tier at $60 a month for at least two people. Well, $30 a month, but you need at least two people, 2 licenses, so it is definitely 60. If you do that, then you have something new that they call Pulse. And what Pulse does is it thinks overnight. It thinks about things overnight. It looks through data. So the next morning when you get up on your smartphone, you get a message saying, here are the things that you were thinking about yesterday. And by the way, I thought about these sorts of things. So it's generating new ideas for you, John. So it says you were talking about these things and I thought about this overnight and maybe you should consider this or this. Oh, and by the way, here are the news stories that are interesting. Here are the things that are on your calendar. Here's an image of the day based on the fact that you went for a walk yesterday. I thought you'd appreciate this. So it is personalizing an experience to start your day. Huxe, I thought was fascinating because as with Notebook LM, you can, you've got these 2 podcast hosts that discuss whatever link or document feed into it, right? And you've experimented with it, and Jim's experimented with it.
Yep.
So what Hux will do is you tell it what you like, and it will generate a personalized newscast. If you're brave enough to tie in your Gmail and your calendar to it, and given that it's a brand new app, I'm not ready to do that yet. It will also, as part of its daily update to you, talk about what it is that's on your calendar, what it is that you're going to do next, who you need to call, what emails you need to be concerned with, and so on, all in this conversational format that you can listen to while you're making breakfast in the morning. Fascinating stuff, actually.
I think it's cool. I mean, it's early days. I think it's going to continue to improve. And I think there's going to be more and more of these tools that come out. And I think at the end of the day, for me, whether it's what AI do you use, what video generator do you use, what personal assistant do you use, it's all going to boil down to what works best in your ecosystem. Like, I love things like Gemini. My issue is, even my personal email is not, I do have a Google email, but I don't use it regularly. So tying it into Gemini doesn't really buy me anything. Right. So I think, it's going to get to a point of what set of tools works best for you in your everyday life.
Or what are you willing to give it access to, I think is also another big.
I think
that is very true.
Because giving it access does personalize it, right? Yeah. The danger of social media was that it put us all into these little silos, echo chambers and stuff like that. Now we're creating an echo chamber of one. Spotify did this a year ago with a personal DJ. I'm not a Spotify user, so if you guys are Spotify users. Yeah. Anyway, apparently they did this personal DJ where the DJ talks to you and makes music for you. And now with stuff like Hux or stuff like Pulse from OpenAI, it's all about you. A silo of one has arrived.
And that's going to be a huge part of either the greater insulation of people, or maybe it is going to be part of the greater insulation of people. That's going to be a strange type of thing. The good news is, though, that OpenAI has realized that it shouldn't be using OpenAI as a therapist. So now they're going to connect all the therapists in the world. You can now go on to OpenAI and be an OpenAI certified therapist. And that, which brings me back to this thing of, this is what I think the big play is for OpenAI, is to be the app. And all of these things that people develop, Hux or any of these things that are coming up, are now just experiments to be absorbed into an OpenAI.
Or Gemini. Gemini is also becoming everything.
Big fight for who's going to win.
Oh, yeah. Dominoes.
I am actually watching the timer, so I know that we're at the point where we need to wrap this. But if you're in the States, how Google just dodged the bullet that they had to sell Chrome, the idea that they would have to be broken up and sell Chrome. So they did just dodge that bullet. So the first thing that came out of this, apparently, and it's in the States, apparently Gemini now shows up in everything on Chrome if you're in the States.
I heard that.
It is now an overlay to your entire world. So you can be on any page, summarize the page. You can be playing a video game and it will say things like, maybe you should be making this move and stuff like that. Gemini can be your side partner or your co-intelligence on absolutely everything if you're running inside of Chrome.
And one more thing, the Steve Jobs moment here.
One more thing.
Android is, they've released the prototype of Android for PCs. And
the new Chrome OS.
So no, this is good. This is a duke 'em out. And the interesting piece is, I'm not sure that we remember we were counting Google out about 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And we'll learn about that. But this could end up to be a duke 'em out between Google and OpenAI, and Microsoft might be the third one at the dance.
And that's what I mean, but it's becoming leapfrog, right? Somebody comes out with something this week, and then next week, another company will come out with either a better version of that or something else that's even cooler.
Except now the big players are locking us down. That's the big difference. The leapfrog is almost over.
But it's who's got the market share. And there's a thing called Metcalfe's law. And I've said this before. Moore's law was really great. The price of technology will drop and the ability of technology will grow. Metcalfe's law said, no, the value of a network is the square of its nodes. So each time you add somebody to your network, you exponentially increase the value. That's the model of SaaS. That is dominate the market. That's what Google did with Chrome. It dominated the market. So it was the browser. And after a while, why do you use Chrome? Because everybody uses Chrome. So you can have a better product that comes along, but everybody's using this. I mean, and you can be like Yogi Berra, and nobody goes there anymore because it's too crowded. But not with digital things. And I think OpenAI understood this better than anybody else. It's why their growth, there's a great study, and I did a story on it. There's a great study that came out of OpenAI where they actually made their own data available. And you know where the real growth in OpenAI is? Poorer countries. India, Brazil, they're going to be the biggest market or the biggest group of people. And that's why it's sort of antithetical to what you were talking about was having a personal relationship. This idea of having everybody be on the same thing really puts them into the realm of a Facebook where there are billions of connections. And Google seems to be trying desperately to do that as well. Microsoft, I'm not so sure. It's going to be a bit of a problem to some extent if they can't do that. Because Microsoft is much more into its hosting, its Azure, than it even is into its desktop. And that's a big thing. Microsoft could get booted out of India, by the way, with all of this geopolitical stuff happening. The Minister of Technology for India said, no, we're going to use Zoho, our own app, which was developed in India for office productivity. So Microsoft's hook to everything has always been office productivity apps. They never made it on the browser.
No.
And so if they lose the office productivity link piece to it, then it really could be a duke about between Google and OpenAI. And that's going to be an interesting piece. Because all of these other things are just interesting if you're so big you can absorb them. You come up with a new app and it's really competitive and it's really doing stuff. I'll either develop another one or I'll buy you, one of the two. Yeah. And in the world of AI generated code, it used to be that copying what somebody had done was really, really easy. Now you'll just AI it. This could be a really, really different world.
We were going to do a show on vibe coding.
Why don't we do next week? Why don't we do vibe coding? Let's do a vibe coding show and you can lead us through, Marcel.
Oh, well, all right. I'm going to give you guys homework, though. I'm going to give you
homework. We'll do it.
I'm going to make you do stuff.
Don't do a gym and give it to us Wednesday night, though.
I won't. Yeah. I'll try to actually give you homework today.
That'll be good. Yeah. So we'll vibe coding next week. I don't know where we got to on this. This is going to be a massively problematic edit, but it was a great discussion. If you've sat and listened to us this long, then thank you very much.
And sorry.
Very patient, or we were much more interesting than I think we were. I just want to do one update. The audiobook is out. It seems to be selling well, which is really great. And if anybody out there wants to get the audiobook, Elisa, A Tale of Quantum Kisses, ELISA, and Jim Love, and you can go on to Audible and get that, or you can Google it and you'll see that I found a way to distribute it to just about everybody who has audiobooks in the entire world, from Audible to Barnes & Noble, Kobo in Canada, because I got dissed about Kobo in Canada. So, and if you do that, please, and Marcel's showing it. Yep, there it is.
And don't forget, it's on Apple. You can get it through Apple iBooks too, because that's where I got it from.
You can get it through Apple iBooks too, and you can post a review, because God knows those are wonderful. But the sales, whoever's buying it, God bless you, and keep it up, because it's been wonderful. And if you like listening to the podcasts, you'll like the narrator, because it's me. There you go.
All right.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Yesterday, there was a video that she sends out, and one of the ones was I said, I'm moving away from how many R's are in strawberry because apparently it just requires a D. So now it's how many D's are in deep sea.